Hello, welcome to The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin in Ukraine, where a massive Russian attack has left 2 people dead and injured dozens. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that 18 missiles and nearly 400 drones were fired, mostly targeting the capital, Kyiv. In one district, a drone struck the roof of a residential building, sparking fires across the city. The sound of explosions filled the air for hours, and as air defenses worked to intercept the barrage, this comes the day after what Ukraine described as the largest aerial attack yet, with 728 drones and 13 ballistic missiles fired across multiple cities. We're staying with Ukraine. The U.S. president says he's considering sending additional advanced Patriot missile systems to Kyiv. He told reporters at the White House that Ukraine had made a request but stressed the system is costly and in high demand. Trump went on to describe the war as a shame and claimed it would not have happened under his presidency. The United States has resumed critical weapons shipments to Ukraine, including artillery shells and precision rockets. The Trump administration also reversed an earlier stance to hold of Patriot interceptors and other advanced munitions from Ukraine.
They would like it. They've asked for it. They're very rare indeed, because a lot of systems have been sent to Ukraine. But they would like to. I know they made the request. We're going to have to take a look at it. It's very expensive system. It's a shame that we have to spend so much money on a war that would have never happened if I were president. That's a terrible, terrible war over there, and it's really a shame. It's very sad. When you talk about a system like that, highly sophisticated, tremendous amount of money, and they're doing it because they want to prevent death. They're getting hit hard, very hard. So we're looking at it. We're looking at Ukraine right now and munitions, but I have not gone into it.
U.S. President Donald Trump. In the meantime, the EU is stepping up efforts to support Ukraine's recovery. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen today announcing a €2.3 billion package to help rebuild the war-torn country. She says the support includes €1.8 billion in loan guarantees and nearly €600 million from international and bilateral public financial institutions. The package is part of the EU's broader Ukraine investment framework, which aims to mobilize up to €10 billion in investment. Ms. von der Leyen also revealed plans for a new equity fund backed by the European Investment Bank and countries including France, Germany and Poland, starting with €220 million. She added that the fund is expected to grow to €500 million by 2026.
This is a war from Russia of resources and competing defense systems, as much as it is a war of values. So we must continue to invest in Ukraine's defense and tech primacy. Our Defence Readiness 2030 plan will be key. It will make available the necessary resources and fiscal space to deliver a surge in military capabilities. And it will boost investment in Ukraine's defence industry. In addition, supporting Ukraine will also allow member states to reach their NATO target of 3.5 plus 1.5% of GDP. All told, over €800 billion can be mobilized, so there is sufficient finance. To my second point, since the full-scale invasion, Europe has been and will stay Ukraine's largest donor, with almost €165 billion of support. And this year alone, we will cover 84% of external financing needed. As part of this support, I can announce €1 billion payment in macro-financial support, dear Volodymyr. I can also announce a payment of more than 3 billion euros from the Ukraine facility. And these guarantees and grants that we are signing here today, you said it, Georgia, and you said it, Volodymyr, it's outstanding. They are set to unlock 10 billion euros in investment for growth, recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine.
We're in the United States now, where 6 Secret Service personnel have been suspended following an operational failure at a Trump rally last year. The incident occurred in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a gunman opened fire, grazing President Trump's ear and killing an attendee. The attacker was shot dead on the scene. Secret Service Deputy Director Matt Quinn confirmed that staff involved have been disciplined, with penalties ranging from 10 to 42 days leave without pay. He added that the agency has already introduced upgrades, including military-grade drones and new mobile command posts to improve field response. The identities of those suspended have not been made public. Let's begin our Washington correspondent Maria Bird to delve deeper into this. Maria, we knew that there was an investigation into the incident. I mean, how can we forget? I mean, we haven't seen that in U.S. politics in so long a time. That time when the gunman opened fire and the bullet whizzed past President Trump's ear. But I think that there was an expectation that something even much more deeper or surprising would be found out, after the investigations, possibly why there was operational failure in the first place.
Yes, you're exactly correct. This investigation now is quite some time after the incident. And so to find out now, to your point of operational failure, I think many Americans did expect that there could have been some operational failure, just due to the fact that the bureaucracy that existed in many of the agencies across the federal government, and specifically when you look at the Secret Service, it's been a long-standing entity within the president's kind of cartel. But furthermore, this agency in this specific area has not had much change over the years. And one of the things that we have seen is that with technology changes, just a number of other areas around Secret Service security and really around security as a whole as it relates to the United States, there could have been some failures there as well. And so this was an operational failure, as they've said. I think that people were wondering whether or not there was something else that could have been going on in the background, and that's why the investigation was taking so long. So this was definitely a bit of a surprise, but I think that what it's really focusing in on is what the president has stated is he is looking to do some major changes across the federal government in the United States. And so this will just be another reason for why he's been moving forward in the way he has with cutting things and having, obviously, in this case, a suspension of these officers and looking into the actual operations within the federal government.
So was there a probe into some of the issues surrounding the assassination attempt on the president himself? For example, some of the rally attendees did see the shooter as he was climbing onto the roof of one of the structures a distance from the rally, and they were calling on law enforcement who ignored those calls.
Yeah, sure. When you think about the fact that there were attendees calling on law enforcement and that there was no action there, that goes further to the point of kind of what their protocols are in place by law enforcement agencies, and so specifically how they react. If we think back on the attacks on the Capitol, and some of what there were no protocols in place for how to address that type of potential attack. And so there is a lack, obviously, within some of these law enforcement entities around protocols and specific natures that focus in on if this is to occur, this is the response. And so obviously when those attendees were calling on the law enforcement, they either did not take it seriously, that the person that was climbing the building could have been looking at an assassination attack. And additionally, they were also looking at the fact that potentially this individual was not any type of a threat. Maybe they were just a bystander. And so I think that because of some of what the president has been trying to put forward, this is just another reason why he's been looking to make some major changes. And we know that just 10 days after this attack, the director of the Secret Service and the FBI, they did resign.
This report is coming a few days before the first anniversary of that incident. Has President Trump reacted to the news yet?
He has not necessarily reacted to the news. What we know is that he will likely have a comment here on July the third, right on July 13th, the day that the anniversary of this. And this will obviously, it's not a coincidence that this investigation is ending right around that time, because this will provide him with ability to discuss why it's important for safety and security around the presidency, why some of the changes he's made have been as potentially drastic, some might feel as they've been. And so, as we know, the president really does take opportunity to focus on his successes, to try to help the American people to understand the reasons for some of the decisions that he's made. And so, it is very highly likely that we will see him come out and speak very ceremonially, very intentionally about this come the anniversary on July the 13th.
And do Americans at least appreciate the changes that have been made, some of which have revolutionized the Secret Service?
Well, I think that Americans are still watching. I think Americans obviously are hopeful that obviously they want to ensure the presidency is secure. Secret Service agents not only secure the president, the vice president, and then other, officials within his cabinet are also, and obviously former presidents are also receive this type of Secret Service. So they want to ensure that there is a protection around these individuals because of the nature of the job that they have. And so I think Americans are hopeful. I don't know if they've seen necessarily, we have not had another assassination attempt, so maybe the changes have been in the positive direction. So I think they're still watching and waiting and hopeful for sure.
Indeed. Maria, this report also comes as Americans are being told that there is no client list in the Epstein files this coming months after the Justice Department or the Department of Justice confirmed that they were ready to release a list. How do Americans feel about the Secret Service performance on that day in hindsight when compared to the latest on Jeffrey Epstein's now disappeared client list?
Well, there is, that's going to become a greater concern. I think that as we've looked at kind of what's been happening over this administration, we know that there are some Americans that were a bit concerned about even some activity of the president prior to him taking office. And so this is another area, I think, of concern when you think about the Epstein files. And as you said, they were going to bring them forward. They even talked about how the president has stated he was going to be reviewing the Dr. King killing, the case on that, the Kennedy, the Epstein files. And so to see that now this client list, and obviously they've identified that the Department of Justice, there are some files that are to be sealed and will not be able to be revealed. But this client list, I think, is something that Americans were wanting to see. They were wanting to get feedback on. They want to see the president act on these types of allegations. And obviously, when you talk about the types of activities, the nature of these activities, and to see who was involved in those. So this is going to be something that we can expect Congress to also speak out against. There are some GOP leaders that believe it was the previous administration that destroyed this list. And there are others, obviously, the Democrats are really calling on, and they are looking to see what the president is going to do in response to this and how the Department of Justice will be able to rectify, and if there will be any information that will be released.
Well, let's hope they do that before calling for Pam Bonder's head on a platter. Maria, thanks again for speaking with us. We're still in the United States, so back to President Donald Trump, who on Wednesday hosted leaders of 5 African countries at the White House for talks and a working lunch. The leaders were from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal. During lunch, the U.S. president hailed the leaders, saying that they were from very vibrant places with very valuable land, great minerals, great oil deposits, and wonderful people. Trump also complimented Liberian President Joseph Boakai on his mastery of the English language, saying, "Such good English. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully?" Well, President Boakai appeared to chuckle, and then President Trump retorted, "Liberia, that's very interesting. I have people at this table who can't speak nearly as well." President Boakai had earlier commended the U.S. for being a longtime friend to Liberia, saying he believed the policy of making America great again.
We have Mauritania is a great country in the sense of its strategic position. It is on the Atlantic coast, which makes it a neighbor to the U.S. It is what unites North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, or what links the two. That is its strategic position, but also in terms of resources. We have a great deal of resources, many, many resources, and we have a lot of opportunities to offer in terms of investment. We have minerals, rare earths, rare minerals. We have manganese. We have uranium. And we have a good inclination that we have lithium and other minerals. We're the second largest producer for the last 60 years in Africa of iron ore. We produce a lot. And we have a lot of resources in our seawaters, so lots of fishing and whatnot. I don't want to spend too much time on this.
But I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it. Maybe we're going to have to go a little bit quicker than this because we have a whole schedule. If I could just say, your name and your country would be great. Thank you, please.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente Trump, e sobretudo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and for welcome and everything. For us, it's the second time here to come as a guest. The first time we had that meeting in Guinea-Bissau, but I will not talk so much. But Guinea-Bissau is a peaceful country. We are a small country, but we are a great state. Not a great state like the United States, but we are a great country as well. And to end, we are be following your dynamics and the war with Russia and Ukraine.
Recent celebration of your 249th anniversary. We did in Liberia at your embassy. Mr. President, we thank you for this opportunity to be here. Liberia is a longtime friend of the United States, and we believe in your policy of making America great again. And we also go a long way with you in your diplomacy that has to do with economic development and commercial friendship. Liberia has a lot of minerals, and one of the things we ask as good friends for a long time is the opportunity to do a survey of our minerals. Mm-hmm. And also we are committed to peace, and we've been very lucky within our region. We are a country that have had a series of democratic elections, and our country has been cooling down. And also, we want to encourage American involvement in the investment in Liberia. Yeah. We'd like to see that happen.
We're off on a short break now on the program. Still ahead. French President Emmanuel Macron and the UK Prime Minister both hammer out migrant deal as the French President wraps up his visit to the United Kingdom. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu presented Donald Trump with a formal nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. And guess who else is a fan of the U.S. president? It's the 5 African leaders who were at the White House on Wednesday. They did support the nomination of President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Take a listen.
And for the African leaders, my question is, as you can see, President Trump is working to bring peace, not only in Africa, but also in the world. Are you all considering to nominate President Trump for a Nobel Prize Peace?
On soutient cette dynamique.
We are in favor of this dynamic for peace. We are very committed on peace. I am the first head of state who went to Russia and who went to Ukraine both since the start of the war. I held the presidency of ECOWAS, and I went to see Mr. Putin. We spoke for 4 hours, and then I went to Ukraine. I spent 12 hours on a train to speak to President Zelensky. But now the weight of President Trump is something else altogether. We are with you. We are behind you to see what we can do to help bring peace back. No one wins when there's war. So you have our support so that we can a Nobel Peace Prize. While I don't see any problem with it, I think that President Trump deserves it for all the efforts that he's worked on. And he brought peace back in the SIAC region. That is my region, the region where DRC and Rwanda signed a deal. And so he is now bringing peace back into a region where that was never possible. So I believe that he does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize. That is my opinion on this.
Continue to support America in the strength to be able to bring about peace in the world. America is a melting point and also a country that we all look forward to. And I want to encourage you, because without peace, we can't have a world to live in. And we stand with you on that.
Forgive me for saying this, but unfortunately, I don't really understand. I don't know how things work when it comes to Nobel Prizes. But I can guarantee you that Mauritania would never be opposed to President Trump receiving a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not a matter of voting amongst our countries, but what is for sure is that the results and the work has been done in such a short amount of time show that you would be a good recipient. And I'm sure that the jury sees that, and the rest of the world sees it as well and understands it. When the time comes, I think everyone will see that it is a deserved prize. Congratulations on what you've done so far.
The 5 African presidents declaring their support for President Donald Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize. Here in Nigeria, the government has reacted to the U.S. government's announcement and implementation of a visa reciprocity schedule for Nigerian citizens, limiting the validity of non-immigrant visas, including B1, B2, F, and J categories, to 3 months with single entry. A statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the government views the development with concern and keen interest, particularly given the long-standing cordial relations and strong people-to-people ties between the two countries. It says the decision appears misaligned with the principles of reciprocity, equity, and mutual respect that should guide bilateral engagements between friendly nations. A statement says Nigeria notes that this restriction places a disproportionate burden on Nigerian travelers, students seeking academic opportunities, professionals engaging in legitimate business, families visiting loved ones, and individuals contributing to cultural and educational exchanges. While acknowledging the sovereign right of every country to determine its immigration policies, Nigeria, the statement says, respectfully urges the United States to reconsider this decision in the spirit of partnership, cooperation, and shared global responsibilities. Diplomatic engagements are ongoing, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs remains committed to pursuing a resolution that reflects fairness and upholds the values of mutual interest. We're off to Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron and the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer have both been rubbing minds on solving the recurring problem of illegal migration. During a press conference this afternoon, they both announced a new deal on tackling small boat crossings. Mr. Starmer said migrants arriving via small boats will be detained and returned to France in short order, and that a pilot will begin within weeks. Starmer says that he knows some will still question why the UK should take anyone in, but he explains that the country accepts genuine asylum seekers to provide a haven to those in dire need. But the Prime Minister says the UK cannot solve the challenge by acting alone, and goes on to praise some of the French government's steps to tackling small boats. Joining us now is immigration lawyer Dayo Fadino. He's in London. Dayo, thank you for joining us on the program. At the press conference between the UK Prime Minister and the French President has been ongoing for some time now. I think just ended. How are you feeling about this deal, the small boats deal?
Good evening, Amarshan, and good evening to your viewers. I feel somewhat hopeful that a good deal actually would be brokered between France and the UK. This deal has been long overdue. There's been so much debate on this very particular area in between France and the UK for so many years now. The to and fro situation to do with migrants coming into the UK via the channel, the English channel, and coming to the UK, and the French not really wanting to take responsibility. At least for once, we have a situation right now where the two countries are now ready to at least broker this deal once and for all, and for that deal to be to the benefit of both countries, both the UK and France. I'm hopeful, and I trust that something would actually come out of this today.
And I'm just wondering if this borders slightly on human rights, the issue of human rights, the fact that these illegal migrants will be forced on those boats back to either France or to the United Kingdom.
The issue of human rights, we need to actually balance a situation like this when it comes to the issue of human rights. We are aware that we've had this problem of migrants coming to the UK through these small boats, the risk and the trouble this has caused over the years. So in effect, anyway, the human rights aspect of a situation like this would have to be balanced quite clearly, because most human rights and freedoms are not particularly mandatory, they are discretionary. So when this particular deal was being brokered by France and by Britain, by Starmer and Macron, of course, they would have taken into consideration the implications of the human rights aspect of things. But at the same time, anyway, if a deal is to be done, they would have also considered the situation to do with that very particularly discretionary power, flowing from any human rights if it's not mandatory. So yes, it could be affected, but at the same time, you would then have to be balanced regarding the overall benefit of what this kind of deal would be for both countries concerned.
Yes, and so it says around 50 migrants will be sent each way per week. Have they talked about the cost implications that this could, eventually render for both countries?
The cost implications would always be there. I think the first thing both countries would need to consider would be to do with the benefit of this very type of deal. Of course, there would always have to be costs concerned when it comes to this kind of a situation, because what the two countries are trying to do is that they're trying to come to a situation and conclusion as to what has to be done with all these migrants coming through France to the UK. And I think another good thing about this deal is the French have also accepted the fact that for every 50 migrants returned to the UK, another 50 would also be returned to France, and the 50 to be returned to the UK every week. They would not return people who do not stand the chance of actually claiming asylum in the UK, or who do not really have family connections in the UK. Those kind of people would not be returned by France to the UK. And another situation to do with the migrants is there would also have to be a very, very strong, strict security checks of anybody that would have to be returned to return to the UK for security reasons. So all these things will be in place to be able to at least understand the fact that not just anybody could actually come to the UK via France. Even if France is actually sending people back to the UK, that should not be automatically accepted as a done deal. It would have to be, things would have to be balanced out clearly for the security of the UK.
I wonder how this is different from the Rwanda deal that was agreed on just, I think, last year, the one that there was a lot of controversy around, and now that the UK has abandoned.
Somewhat. I was looking at the Rwandan deal recently, where when that border immigration bill was about to be passed, and I think it was actually passed by the last Tory government to do with immigrants being sent to Rwanda. But I think the difference between this deal and the Rwandan deal regarding the former government is the fact that the problem they had with Rwanda was the Rwandan human rights records to do with abuse of human rights. You know, they were not particularly keen on the rule of law, and so many the judges, the Supreme Court was quite concerned that people should not be sent back to that type of country where they are not particularly high up there on human rights and freedoms of individuals. But as far as this deal is concerned, it's a deal in between France and UK. And these two countries that truly respect the human rights of individuals. They will balance out what is right and what should not be right to do with the migrants' human rights. So that's it. That's the main difference. And I think another thing to do with, if we compare the last Rwandan deal with this very particular deal, my little concern is I'm not sure how the UK will be dealing with a situation where if migrants have already claimed asylum in the UK, right, would they want to then send those, if these people do not really have any links and ties with the UK, and they've already claimed asylum in the UK, would the UK still want to return such migrants back to France? Because that would truly and really be in breach of the UN Convention, Refugee Convention. The moment you claim asylum, that asylum would have to be considered, and that person would not have to be returned to a country like France or any other country. Another thing that I'm also a little bit concerned about is if indeed the UK is now allowed to return migrants back to France, other EU countries could be quite concerned because many of these migrants got to France through their countries. And if we are to go by what the Dublin Convention states very clearly, you claim asylum as your first port of call, your first country, the first country you actually got to when you got into Europe. So many of these countries could be thinking that, or if all these migrants are now returned back to France, France could possibly want to invoke the Dublin Convention, where it could state that, look, you know what, these migrants actually came to your country, came to our country through your country, either through Germany or through Italy or Hungary, any of these countries. And for that reason, because so long as you are still a signatory to the Dublin Convention, you are meant to actually deal with these migrants and not us. So of course, many European countries could be a little bit concerned that maybe that could be the case. So these are the issues and the problems I think we might face with this deal. We don't know how practical it could be and how workable it would be. I mean, how do you determine what migrants are to be sent to the UK from France? Who are the people who are to determine what migrants are to be sent back to the UK? Would it be workable? Is it enough? Can we actually regard this as enough deterrent to prevent and to discourage so many migrants from wanting to cross the Mediterranean Sea into Europe, and then also want to then come to the UK? Is it a big enough deterrent to stop these people from actually coming to the UK? We are not too clear and sure whether that could be the case. So there are still so many ifs and so many doubts as to whether this scheme would work at all. Is it a big enough scheme to potentially stop migrants from coming to the UK?
Raised more questions than I have in this interview, and I'm sure that these are questions that the UK and the French governments need to consider in order to make this deal work. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Amarash. Good evening.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has met with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hexith at the Pentagon, where they both discussed the 12-day conflict with Iran. This meeting, held on Wednesday, came just days after the conclusion of a 12-day conflict in which Israeli forces launched a salvo of airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Scientists and military commanders dubbed Operation Rising Lion. Iran retaliated with True Promise 3, a barrage of rockets and drones launched towards Israel, including cities such as Tel Aviv. Multiple casualties were reported on both sides. The conflict escalated in the early hours of June 22nd as 7 U.S. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers struck Iran's heavily fortified nuclear facilities under Operation Midnight Hammer. Tehran would go on to launch retaliatory strikes on a U.S. airbase in Doha, Qatar.
President Trump was very clear. After 60 days, he gave them every opportunity, and then Operation Rising Lion took place. And the skill of your professionals, what was accomplished, was absolutely incredible. The precision with which you went at the nuclear capabilities, and then the opportunity we had through those B-2 pilots, the F-32 or F-35, F-22, F-15 pilots that accompanied the refuelers to help put the finishing touches, you might say, on those facilities. It was an honor to be a part of it. Appreciate your partnership, the leadership of your team, sending a message to the world, not just to Iran, not just to them and their nuclear capabilities, but those B-2 pilots sent a message to the world as well.
They gird the globe. I think the entire world took note. I think Iran took note. I think everybody in the Middle East took note of American resolve and of the strength of our alliance. I think it was, frankly, it was like the roar of two lions, and it was heard around the world. So thank you again, and our admiration for everything that you did, and our appreciation for it, and gratitude. Thank you.
Stay with us. Still ahead after the break on The World Today. Gaza painters turn trauma into powerful works at the Phoenix exhibition. Stay with us.
And sat down with my father on his throne.
This is Kenya, where families have gathered at the All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi to honor Boniface Kyuki, a young vendor shot dead during an anti-government protest on June 17. Boniface, a mask vendor in Nairobi, was shot in the head at close range by a rubber bullet and rushed to the ICU at Kenyatta National Hospital. Following several days in a coma, he was pronounced brain dead and passed away on June 30. He had joined a protest calling for justice over the death of blogger Albert Ojwang, who was earlier found dead in police custody. According to Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, at least 31 people have died and 107 injured amid the ongoing unrest.
And to pass a vote of thanks. It pains me a lot knowing today that my friend who was working tirelessly in selling masks just to make a niche, he was shot dead by a police. It also pains as a country knowing that many people have died because of police brutality that have been happening in the country. To the family, the father and the mother, we want to say we will stand with you at this synonymous time. I know the country is at pain and everyone is at pain.
To the family of Boniface Mwangi, Mzee and Mama, Boniface Kyuki, we want it to go out there for those who are observing that Boniface Kyuki is not just a name, a media name out there, but he was a son, a brother, a friend, and a neighbor. And even though his dreams have not been fulfilled the way he wanted to, we believe that God is going to bring justice to all activities that took place. His death is not just a tragedy, but it's a piercing wound to all of us.
President William Ruto has taken a different stance, calling protesters attacking police terrorists, describing their actions as a declaration of war. He was saying this at a rally in Nairobi. Earlier this week, violent clashes broke out between police and protesters, marking the Saba Saba anniversary, as large crowds rallied nationwide in defiance against police brutality and rising living costs, while demanding President Ruto's resignation. In response, authorities closed roads and deployed tear gas to disperse the crowds.
This country will not be destroyed by a few people and who want to have a change of government using unconstitutional means. It is not going to happen. And I want to tell them it is not going to happen. Those who attack our police, those who attack our security men and women, those who attack our security installations, including police stations, that is a declaration of war. That is terrorism. We are going to deal with you firmly. You can call me whatever names you want to call me. But I will
Separately, the president also, during a national address, defended the police's right to do everything possible to protect the country's residents. Authorities have confirmed over 500 people have been arrested in the nationwide protests.
Police have a right, constitutional right, to use whatever means possible to make sure the lives of Kenyans are protected, their property is protected, and they need to take steps to make sure that if life and property is in danger, the police must act accordingly. Honestly, how can anybody say that the police cannot protect the lives and properties of other Kenyans? There is a reason why there is a roadblock. There is a reason why police have tear gas. There is a reason why water cannons are there. They are supposed to be used to protect the lives and property of other Kenyans when they are in danger. So a person who already has security in his house, guarded by the police, in his car, driven by the police, is telling us the property of other Kenyans is not worth being protected by the police.
Kenyan President William Ruto. And as we end the program today, despite nearly 2 years of war and unimaginable hardship, artists in Gaza are still finding ways to express resilience through creativity. Visitors to the Phoenix Art Exhibition were introduced to a powerful collection of paintings and drawings, all inspired by life during conflict. Inside the modest gallery space, the mood is reflective. The artworks are raw, emotional, and deeply personal, and they portray themes of displacement, survival, and grief. The exhibition organizer, Muhammad Sanyes, explains the mission, saying the aim is to provide artistic tools and materials, as well as free space in which people can express themselves and their real lives. One of them, who's an artist, described his work as a channel for pain. He says the paintings were born out of the negative energy haunting him. They reflect his suffering, his displacement, and the horrors he's lived through. That's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.